Okay, so I have a problem. My plants keep dying and I don't know whether I'm not watering them enough or if I'm watering them too much. So in this video, I'm going to build a tiny robot to measure the moisture level and send me a message every time my plant needs water. So these are the components that I'm going to use. First of all, we have a capacitive moisture sensor. And this thing basically uses a tiny bit of current to detect the moisture level in the soil. These things are really cheap and you can pick them up for like €1 a piece. Next, to interpret the data coming from the sensor, we're going to use an ESP32 board. The cool thing about the ESP32 is that it has built-in Wi-Fi. So I should be able to connect it to my home network quite easily. And I should be able to collect real-time data from my plants. And finally, I'm going to use a tiny OLED display just to display the moisture level and whether or not I should be watering my plants. So let's go ahead and hook up this OLED display first. So this OLED display uses a I2C protocol, which basically means that it uses two signal pins to control the screen. So I'm going to hook those up to GPIO pins on the ESP32 board, and then the other two pins on the display are for power and ground. And I'm going to hook those up to the ESP32 as well. Make sure to use a 3.3 volt power supply because this thing won't work on any voltage higher than that. So you will burn out this board, so be careful. Alright, next I'm going to write some code to test if this OLED display works. And by write some code, I mean ask ChatGPT to write it for me. I find that ChatGPT is really good at writing code for Arduino. It usually gets it right. Oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe. So now I want to connect the moisture sensor to the ESP32 and I want to use the three pins on the end of the board right here labeled V in, ground and D13. But I did run into a small problem because the wires coming out of the moisture sensor are labeled signal, power and then ground. So in order to make it work, I have to switch around the power and ground wires. Luckily, it is quite easy to do this. We can gently lift up the tab on this connector and we should be able to pull out the wires. I'm going to do that for the power and the ground wire. I'm going to switch those two around and then I can plug them back in and they should snap back into place. And now I can connect the moisture sensor up to the ESP32. Alright, so now everything is wired up. The next thing we have to do is write some code and test if everything works. And again, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to write all the code for me. And I want to address my comment section in advance really quickly because you guys need to stop making fun of me for using AI for everything, okay? I think AI is a very useful tool and it definitely speeds up the development process, so I'm absolutely going to use it. That doesn't, however, mean that I don't know anything, okay? You guys will not know this, but before everybody was using AI and large language models, I taught myself how to code. And I used to work as a software engineer. So I do know a thing or two about coding and I could absolutely code this entire project from scratch. The thing is, AI is just much faster. It can do this in literal seconds. I remember when I started out coding, I used to spend hours on Stack Overflow trying to figure out why my code didn't work. And I haven't been on Stack Overflow in like 3 years now because I solely use AI. And yeah, AI is not perfect and it does make a lot of mistakes and sometimes the code is really bad, but it is still much faster to troubleshoot AI than it is to write all the code from scratch. So I'm absolutely going to keep using AI. Alright, so before you go ahead and leave a comment telling me why I'm wrong and why AI is the worst thing ever invented, you should probably know how AI actually works because a lot of you guys seem to get it wrong. So let me tell you about today's video sponsor, Brilliant.org. So Brilliant offers a bunch of courses on topics like physics, data science and mathematics. I've been doing this course on AI recently and it's given me a much better understanding of how AI actually works. Because a lot of people in my comment section seem to think that AI works like Google, which it doesn't. It is completely different technology. So I highly recommend go checking out this course. What I also really like about the courses on Brilliant is the way that they are interactive. So you sort of get hands-on experience with the stuff as you're learning, which for me personally really works. So go check out Brilliant.org. You can scan the QR code on screen right now to start learning for free today, or you can get 20% discount on a premium annual subscription, unlocking access to premium courses. Scan the QR code on screen and I'll have a link in the description, so go check out Brilliant.org, and a massive thanks to Brilliant.org for sponsoring the channel. Alright, let's get on with the video. Alright, so now that ChatGPT has made some code for us, let's first test if the code actually works. So I've got everything hooked up and I have got a glass of water, and supposedly if I put the moisture sensor into the water it should read 100% because it's fully saturated. Alright, what's funny is if I pick it up it says 73% or 74% moisture, so apparently I'm 74% water, which seems about right. But as you can see, when I put it into the glass of water, it does read 100%. So I'm gonna call this good, and we're gonna move on to making a case for this thing. So I just designed a very simple, very rudimentary 3D printed case for it. It just consists of two parts, a bottom and a top part. So the bottom part has a cutout for the ESP32 on the top here, and in the bottom it has a slot for the capacitive moisture sensor, and that is going to be held into place with two screws. So the top is also very simple. It just has a cutout for the OLED display, and I'm going to hold that in place with a very high-tech solution using some electrical tape. So yeah, that's the whole thing assembled. It was a bit of a struggle to get all the wires to fit inside of it, but eventually I managed, and this is the finished result. And I think it looks pretty cool. It's fairly simple, but it will do the job. So now let's go ahead and test if this thing actually works. I got a plant right here that I haven't watered in about a week, so it should be very, very dry. So let's plug in this moisture sensor and see what it says. Alright, so this plant definitely needs some water, so let's go ahead and water it really quickly. And I'm going to water it until the moisture level reads around 70 or 80%, so then the soil is nice and saturated and this plant should be happy again. Okay, so to test the next part of this project, we're gonna have to wait until the moisture level drops below 10%, and I should get a notification telling me that I should water my plant. The reason I picked 10% is because what I found online is that the best watering strategy is to basically soak the plant completely and then wait for the soil to dry out completely before soaking it again. And that strategy seems to work the best for the most plants, so that's the one that I went with. Alright, anyway, let's wait for this thing to dry out.
3 days later.
Alright, so I just got a notification on my phone telling me my plant needs water, so everything seems to work, so let's go ahead and water that plant really quickly. I also decided that it would be more fun if my plant would send me memes instead of just messages, so I basically coded in a list of random plant related memes, and now every time the moisture level sensor drops below 10%, it's just going to send me a random meme from that list. So the way that I made that work is I connected the ESP32 to my home Wi-Fi network, and I use a Discord webhook to send me messages in my Discord server. So yeah, everything seems to work really, really well. The only thing I've got left to do now is make a bunch more for all of the other plants in my house. Alright, so if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, and yeah, thanks for watching, see you guys next time.